Deep beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, hidden under layers of ice and rock, something ancient had been sleeping for centuries. It was not a relic of Earth's past, nor a creation of human hands. It was something far older, something that did not belong to this world. For decades, rumors had circulated about strange readings from the ice, unexplained magnetic disturbances, and fleeting signals detected by deep space observatories. Scientists dismissed them as natural phenomena. But a small group of researchers, working in secrecy, believed otherwise. They had spent years searching, digging through classified records and satellite scans, convinced that something lay buried beneath the ice, something that had crashed here long ago and had been forgotten by time itself. When the drilling team finally broke through the last layer of ice, they didn't know what to expect. The moment their machinery pierced the frozen barrier, a strange pulse rippled through the ground. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a slight vibration beneath their feet. Then, their instruments went haywire, radio signals cut off, compasses spun wildly, and electronic devices flickered in and out. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Dr. Elias Carter, the expedition leader, stepped forward, brushing the frost from his visor as he peered into the darkness of the cavern they had just opened. What lay beneath sent a shiver down his spine. A metallic structure, massive and sleek, was buried deep in the ice, its surface untouched by time. Strange symbols ran along its hull, glowing faintly as if they had been waiting for this moment. The air around it was thick with something unexplainable, an invisible presence that made every hair on their bodies stand on end. For years, scientists had debated the possibility of extraterrestrial life, but now, standing before this impossible structure, there was no room for doubt. It was a ship, an alien vessel, forgotten and lost to time. But the real question was, why had no one come to retrieve it? The thought sent a chill through Carter's mind. If something this advanced had crashed on Earth, why had its creators never returned? Had they abandoned it? Or was there another reason, something far worse? He pushed the thought aside and ordered the team to move in, carefully approaching the wreckage. Every step closer made the air feel heavier, as if the very atmosphere resisted their presence. The moment Carter's hand touched the metal, a low hum filled the cavern. The ship responded. The glowing symbols along its hull pulsed brighter, and somewhere deep within, something ancient stirred to life. The ice around them cracked and groaned as the buried structure shifted, awakening from its long slumber. The researchers stumbled back as lights flickered within the vessel, casting eerie shadows across the cavern. Something had changed. A signal, too faint for human ears, was sent into the void out into space, to places unknown. None of them knew it yet, but far beyond the reaches of Earth, something had received that signal. Something that had been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. Carter barely had time to process what was happening before one of the researchers gasped, pointing at their communication devices. The encrypted channels they had been using were suddenly filled with static, then with something else, something that sent a cold dread through the team. A voice. Not human, not mechanical, but something in between. It spoke in a language no one understood, a series of clicks and echoes that sounded like a warning. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the voice cut off, and the ground beneath them trembled. They had activated something. And whatever it was no longer dormant. Back at the research base, alarms blared as global satellites picked up an anomaly. A signal had been transmitted from Antarctica, one that was not of earthly origin. Government agencies scrambled to respond. Military divisions were put on high alert, and classified orders were issued to contain the situation. But it was already too late. Across the vastness of space, something had heard the call. And now, it was coming. Far beyond Earth, deep in the void of space, something ancient and powerful stirred. A massive structure, hidden among the ruins of forgotten wars, suddenly came to life as a signal reached its core. It was a message, an alert that should never have been activated. The Kryn Dominion, a ruthless and dominant force in the galaxy, had long believed this chapter of their history was closed. The lost warship, the one they had abandoned on a primitive world centuries ago, was never meant to be found. And yet, against all odds, the humans had discovered it. Worse, They had awakened it. The Kryn warlords gathered in urgent council, their elongated forms moving in restless agitation. It was decided instantly Earth had to be silenced before the consequences became irreversible. A retrieval fleet was dispatched, but it would not arrive with the fury of open war. No, the humans were still too ignorant of their place in the universe. The Kryn would strike like ghosts, erasing every trace of their lost technology without humanity ever realizing they had come. On Earth, oblivious to the silent doom approaching from the stars, Dr. Elias Carter and his team worked tirelessly inside the cavern beneath the ice. The alien ship was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. Its design flawless, its systems still functional despite the ages it had spent buried. Strange holographic interfaces flickered in and out of existence as researchers attempted to decipher its secrets. Every discovery raised more questions. How had this ship crashed? What had caused its crew to vanish? And why had no one come for it before now? Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a boundary that was never meant to be breached. And yet, the thirst for knowledge pushed them forward. They had barely scratched the surface, but the ship was no longer dormant. It was responding to them, reacting, learning. But far above the planet, hidden within the vastness of the night sky, the Kryn were already here. Their ships, cloaked in distortion fields, drifted silently into Earth's orbit, invisible to human technology. They were not here for conquest. Not yet. This was a mission of erasure. A team of Kryn infiltrators descended unseen, slipping past Earth's defenses like shadows. Their presence went unnoticed, their movements precise and calculated. Across human networks, strange malfunctions began. Satellite feeds glitched for mere seconds, unnoticed by all except the most watchful engineers. Surveillance systems blacked out, only to return as if nothing had happened. In Antarctica, the research base's communications flickered, then fell silent. Inside the cavern, Carter and his team suddenly found themselves cut off. Their instruments lost contact with the outside world, their distress signals met with static. Something was wrong. The ship, once flickering with life, now pulsed with an ominous rhythm, as if aware of the danger that lurked nearby. Then the first signs of intrusion appeared. At the edges of their vision, movement. Flickers of something that should not be there. Shadows shifting where there should be none. A researcher turned, only to find nothing. Another swore he saw the ice itself ripple. And then, the power in the cavern dimmed. The Kryn moved with the silence of death itself, slipping through the frozen corridors with inhuman precision. Their goal was clear: eliminate all evidence, retrieve the ship's core technology, and ensure that no human lived to speak of it. They advanced, unseen and undetected, but the ship was no longer the unguarded relic they had expected. It had bonded with its new environment, with the humans who had awakened it. And for reasons beyond their understanding, it resisted them. The first attack came suddenly. A researcher collapsed as a piercing sound filled the air, an invisible force slamming him against the frozen ground. The others barely had time to react before the darkness itself seemed to move. The Kryn were fast, impossibly fast. They emerged from the shadows, their forms shifting like liquid, weapons flashing with an eerie blue glow. Panic erupted. The researchers had no weapons, no way to fight back. Carter barely managed to drag one of his injured colleagues to cover as the invaders advanced. It was a massacre. But just as the Kryn prepared to finish the job, the ship reacted. Its metallic structure pulsed, and suddenly, the cavern was bathed in an unnatural light. The air vibrated with an unknown energy, and the alien warriors hesitated. A deep, mechanical voice, something not human, not Kryn, echoed through the ice. Warnings flashed across their vision, messages in a language long forgotten. And then, in an instant, the ship unleashed its defenses. The cavern shook violently as unseen energy surged through its walls. The Kryn, once invincible predators, were now the hunted. Their cloaking fields flickered, disrupted by something they did not understand. The ship had recognized them not as its masters, but as intruders. Metallic tendrils shot from the wreckage, moving with intelligence, striking with lethal precision. The Kryn fought back, but they had no time to recover. The ship's forgotten systems were now awake, and it was defending itself. Carter and his team could only watch in shock as the battle unfolded before them. The alien invaders, once ghosts in the dark, were now fully visible, their forms twisted and unnatural. But for all their terrifying power, they were losing. One by one, they were cut down by the ship's defenses. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The cavern fell silent once more, the last of the Kryn collapsing in defeat. The ship dimmed, its glow fading, as if returning to sleep. But Carter knew better. This was no longer a forgotten relic. It was something far more dangerous. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Kryn fleet received their final transmission. The retrieval mission had failed. The humans had survived. And now, Earth was no longer just a primitive world beneath their notice. It was a threat. A war was coming, and humanity had no idea what was about to unfold. The frozen cavern was eerily silent, except for the heavy breathing of Dr. Elias Carter and his remaining team. The bodies of the alien intruders lay scattered across the icy floor, their strange weapons still glowing faintly in the dim light. It was over. The ship had defended itself, but Carter knew this was only the beginning. The Kryn had come in silence, trying to erase all evidence of their lost vessel, and they had failed. That meant they wouldn't stay in the shadows anymore. They would return, and next time, they wouldn't come as ghosts in the dark. They would come with fire and destruction. He wiped the sweat from his brow, his fingers shaking as he tried to process what had just happened. Less than an hour ago, his team had been a group of scientists uncovering a relic from another world. Now, they were survivors of an alien attack, stranded in a place where help was cut off, where their communications had been severed, and where the only thing keeping them alive was the very thing they had come to study: the ship. Carter turned to the vessel, its surface dimming again, as if it had spent all its energy repelling the attack. The alien symbols along its hull were no longer just patterns to him. They were something more, something alive. It had responded to them, protected them, but why? He took a cautious step forward, his heart pounding. The ship had accepted them, but had it chosen them? He placed his palm against the cold metal, half expecting another pulse of energy, another warning, but this time the response was different. A low hum vibrated beneath his fingertips, not threatening, but inviting. Then, slowly, the ship began to change. Panels shifted, revealing new pathways within its structure. Lights flickered on, casting an otherworldly glow inside the cavern. It was as if the ship had been waiting for something, and now it had finally awakened. One of the surviving researchers, a young engineer named Samir Patel, stepped forward hesitantly. "Dr. Carter," he said, his voice hoarse with disbelief, "I think it's letting us in." Carter didn't respond immediately. He was staring at the passage that had just revealed itself, leading deeper into the heart of the alien machine. He had spent his entire life searching for proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and now he was standing on the threshold of something beyond his imagination. The question was, did they dare step inside? His gut told him they had no choice. The Kryn had sent assassins to eliminate them, and more were surely on the way. They couldn't stay out in the open. If they wanted to survive, if they wanted to understand what they were up against, they had to embrace the unknown. With a deep breath, Carter nodded. "Let's go." One by one, the remaining members of the team followed him inside. The moment they stepped through, the ship seemed to react to their presence, the walls pulsing with faint blue light. The interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. Sleek corridors curved in ways that defied normal geometry, and strange symbols flickered along the surfaces as they walked. The air was different too, not cold, not warm, but something else entirely, like stepping into a space that wasn't fully connected to the world outside. Patel ran his hand over a console, and to his surprise, it responded to his touch, lighting up with strange data streams. "This thing isn't just a ship," he whispered. It's a living system." Carter's mind was racing. The Kryn had abandoned this vessel, but why? It was still functional, still powerful. And now it was responding to humans as if they belonged here. Had it been waiting for them? Had it chosen them? Before he could speak, A new sound filled the ship, deep and resonant, like a distant voice speaking in a language they could almost understand. The holographic displays shifted, transforming into recognizable patterns. And then, suddenly, English words formed in the air before them. Command interface engaged. Awaiting authorization. A stunned silence fell over the team. Patel was the first to recover. Command interface? You mean this ship wants a pilot? Carter's mind was spinning. If this ship recognized them as its new operators, if it was offering them control, what did that mean for humanity? The Kryn had tried to take it back, but they had failed. What if this ship could be Earth's first line of defense? The implications were staggering. A single human warship had never existed before, and now, standing inside an ancient alien vessel that had just chosen them, Carter realized they had just stepped onto a battlefield far larger than they had ever imagined. Before they could process the weight of this discovery, the ship's lights flickered again, and a new alert appeared on the holographic screen. Warning, incoming hostile presence detected. Estimated time of arrival, 18 hours. Carter felt his blood run cold. The Kryn weren't done. They were coming back, and this time, they wouldn't make the mistake of sending a handful of assassins. They would bring their fleet. Humanity's first war in the stars was about to begin, and the only weapon they had was the very ship the Kryn were so desperate to reclaim. The frozen cavern trembled as the ship came fully to life. Energy pulsed through its metallic structure, humming with an intensity that sent vibrations through the ice. Dr. Elias Carter and his team barely had time to process what was happening before the holographic display before them shifted again. Warning, hostile fleet approaching. 17 hours until arrival. The words burned into their minds, a chilling reminder that they had no time to waste. The Kryn were coming, and they wouldn't stop until Earth was silenced. Carter clenched his fists. The battle had already begun, and they were the only ones who knew it. No governments, no armies, just a handful of scientists and an ancient warship that had, for reasons still unknown, chosen them. He turned to Patel, who was frantically working on the ship's interface. "Can we fly it?" Carter asked, his voice edged with urgency. Patel hesitated. I think so. But it's not just a ship, Carter. It's something more. The controls aren't mechanical, they're organic. It responds to us, but I don't know how much control we actually have. Carter exhaled sharply. There was no choice. They had to figure it out. The Kryn wouldn't give them another chance. Then we learn. Fast. The team split up, following the ship's glowing pathways, as if it were guiding them itself. Each corridor seemed to shift subtly as they moved. In the center of the room, a large circular interface pulsed like a beating heart. Carter hesitated for only a second before stepping forward and placing his hands on the surface. The response was immediate. The ship surged, energy flowing around him as symbols filled the air. Images flashed through his mind, star maps, weapon systems, alien fleets. It was overwhelming, but somehow he understood. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a weapon, a fortress, a guardian waiting for a commander. And now, for better or worse, it had chosen him. Outside, miles above Earth, the Kryn fleet was closing in. Their ships, sleek and predatory, cut through the darkness of space with silent menace. The lead warship, a massive dreadnought, bristled with weapons capable of reducing cities to ash in seconds. The Kryn warlords had seen enough. Their infiltration unit had failed. Their warship had fallen into human hands. This was no longer a quiet cleanup mission. This was extermination. The order was given. Eliminate all resistance. Burn the planet if necessary. The fleet adjusted its course, preparing to enter Earth's atmosphere. Their scanners had already pinpointed the exact location of the lost ship. It would be the first target to fall. But below the ice, the ship had other plans. It sensed the approaching threat, its systems now fully active. Carter felt the ship responding, preparing itself for battle. Data streamed into his mind shield configurations, weapon charges, propulsion readiness. He barely understood how he was processing it, but it didn't matter. The ship knew. It was teaching him. He turned to Patel. "I think we can fight," he said. Patel's eyes widened. "Fight? With what?" Before Carter could answer, the ship answered for him. The cavern shook as the ground split apart, revealing hidden thrusters beneath the ice. The ship was no longer trapped. It had simply been waiting. With a deafening roar, it began to rise. The world above changed in an instant. From the Antarctic ice sheets, a massive alien warship erupted into the sky, its sleek black hull reflecting the light of the sun. Satellites across the globe picked up the sudden movement. Military radars went wild. Nations scrambled for answers. But there was no time for explanations. The Kryn were coming, and humanity's first warship had just taken flight. Inside, Carter and his team gripped whatever they could as the ship ascended at an impossible speed. He barely had time to register the altitude before alarms flared. The Kryn fleet had detected them. The battle was about to begin. Above Earth, the Kryn dreadnought fired the first shot. A massive energy beam cut through the atmosphere, aimed directly at the rising warship. But the ship reacted before Carter could even think. Shields activated, a shimmering barrier absorbing the blast as the vessel twisted mid-air with impossible agility. It wasn't just defending, it was fighting back. Weapon systems online, a voice echoed within the ship. Carter didn't need to ask what that meant. He felt it. A deep, pulsing energy within the hull, ready to be unleashed. He focused, and the ship responded. From its underbelly, a burst of blue fire shot forth, a beam of energy slicing through the sky. The first Kryn fighter never had a chance. It disintegrated in an instant. The Kryn realized their mistake too late. This was not a primitive world's lost artifact. This was a war machine designed to destroy them. The human warship surged forward, weaving through enemy fire like a predator among prey. Every instinct in Carter's body told him he shouldn't be able to fly like this, shouldn't be able to command a vessel beyond human understanding, but the ship made it possible. It was guiding him, fighting with him. For the first time in history, humanity was not the hunted. They were the hunters. The battle raged across the sky, flames and debris scattering through the atmosphere. Kryn warships exploded one after another as the ancient vessel tore through them. The dreadnought tried to retreat, realizing too late that this fight was lost. But Carter wasn't about to let them escape. He focused, and the ship responded. Energy surged through its core, gathering at the front like the breath of a dragon. The Kryn commander on the dreadnought barely had time to scream before the final blast tore through his ship, shattering it into nothingness. And then, silence. The skies were clear. The invasion was over. The Kryn fleet had been annihilated. The ship slowly descended, returning to Earth, its mission complete. Inside, Carter exhaled shakily. They had done it. Humanity had won. But deep in his heart, he knew this was just the beginning. The Kryn wouldn't forget this. They wouldn't forgive it. And now, Earth was no longer just another primitive world. It was a force to be reckoned with. As the warship settled back onto the icy terrain, Carter looked up at the sky, knowing that somewhere out there, more enemies would be coming. But this time, humanity wouldn't be defenseless. They had a ship. They had a weapon. And they had a future worth fighting for. The frozen battlefield was silent. Smoke and debris from the destroyed Kryn fleet still lingered in the upper atmosphere, a grim reminder of the war that had nearly begun. Dr. Elias Carter stood at the base of the alien warship, staring at the sky. The night was clear now, the stars shining brighter than he had ever seen before. But he knew better. The darkness beyond wasn't empty. Out there, among those distant lights, the Kryn would regroup. They would realize what had happened here. And they would return. Patel stepped beside him, his face still pale from everything they had just survived. "We won," he said, almost as if he was trying to convince himself. "We actually won." Carter didn't answer immediately. Yes, they had defeated the Kryn strike force. Yes, the ship had proven itself to be the deadliest weapon in human history. But victory wasn't the same as safety. For now, Carter finally said. But this was just a scouting force. The real war hasn't even started yet. The others gathered around, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. They had come here as scientists, explorers. Now, they were the first humans to pilot an alien warship, the first to fight against a species that had never even considered Earth a threat before today. The question that weighed on all of them was the same: what now? Could they just bury the ship again and pretend none of this had happened? Could they trust Earth's governments to handle something of this magnitude? And even if they did, could humanity afford to wait for the Kryn's next move? The warship itself seemed to sense their hesitation. The humming energy that had powered its weapons was now subdued, waiting. It had chosen them. It had fought alongside them. But it had not revealed everything. Carter had felt it when he was at the controls. The ship was more than just a machine. It was a gateway to something bigger. A past. A purpose. A war far older than humanity itself. And if they were going to survive what came next, they needed to understand it. "We need to leave Earth," Carter said suddenly, his voice firm. The others turned to him, startled. "What?" Patel frowned. "Leave? After everything that just happened?" Carter nodded. "The Kryn know about us now. They'll send more ships, and next time, it won't be a handful of assassins or a small fleet. It'll be an invasion. We can't wait for them to come knocking on our door." He gestured toward the ship. "This thing isn't just a war machine. It's a chance. A way to go beyond Earth, to find out who built it, to understand why the Kryn fear it so much. If we stay here, we'll be trapped, forced to fight on their terms. But if we take the fight to them, if we go out there and learn what's really going on, we might actually have a chance." The team exchanged uneasy glances. They had barely survived this battle, and now Carter was talking about flying straight into the unknown. But deep down, they all knew he was right. The Kryn had underestimated them once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. Earth wasn't ready for what was coming, but maybe, just maybe, this shit was. Patel sighed, rubbing his temples. "So what? We just steal the most powerful warship in the galaxy and fly off into space?" Carter smirked. "You make it sound crazy." "It is crazy," Patel muttered. "But I can't think of a better plan." One by one, the others nodded. They had already crossed the line. They had already seen too much to go back to normal lives. They weren't just scientists anymore. They were something else. Something new. The first humans to step beyond their world, not as explorers or colonists, but as warriors. As defenders. As the first strike against a force that would see Earth burn. Carter turned back to the ship. "Then let's not waste time." The warship responded immediately, its deep hum growing louder, as if it had been waiting for them to decide. The entrance hatch slid open, and the team hurried inside, taking their places at the controls. Carter stepped into the command seat, feeling the ship respond to him once again. The interface lit up, displaying star charts, unknown coordinates, hidden data buried within the ship's ancient memory. He reached out, and for the first time, he truly understood. This ship wasn't just a relic. It had a mission. And now, that mission belonged to humanity. Outside, the ice cracked as the warship lifted off once more. But this time, it didn't stop in the atmosphere. It didn't linger in Earth's skies. It ascended higher, past the clouds, past the satellites, past everything humanity had ever known. And then, with a sudden burst of impossible speed, it shot forward, leaving Earth behind. For the first time in history, a human warship had entered the stars. And the universe would never be the same again.